A very good evening. Thank you for joining us this 19th day of May 2025. I am Priva Elibaz with Maureen Nambalira on sign language. Here is a quick look at the day's top stories. Tonight, the High Court convicts UPDF deserter Daniel Chiseka Chiwanuka, also a Chakobana and peasant from Kayunga district, for the 2015 murder of Assistant DPP Joan Kagezi Namazi. The police declares that it has no information on the whereabouts of one of its officers, Charles Twine, and National Unity Platform Party lawyer Abed Nasa Mudiowole, missing since Wednesday. Also on NTV Tonight, opposition members of parliament have unanimously agreed to participate in tomorrow's parliamentary session to oppose the UPDF amendment bill. And NRM's Farida Nambi Chigongo makes a final submission in the High Court electoral petition challenging Kawempe North Member of Parliament Arias Luyimbazi Nalukola's victory.
This is NTV Tonight.
Welcome to NTV Tonight. We're coming to you live from the Kampala Serena Conference Center and also streaming on our website, ntv.co.ug. Now, the International Crimes Division High Court has convicted UPDF deserter Daniel Chiseka Chiwanuka, a Chakobana and peasant from Nsabo village in Kayunga, of the 2015 murder of Assistant DPP Joan Kagezi Namazi. Now, the development follows a plea bargain deal Chiseka struck with the office of the DPP to accept murder charges in exchange of a lenient punishment. Now, in exchange, the prosecution has dropped terrorism charges against Chiseka and amended the indictment to plea for guilty to murder charges. In return, the High Court has sentenced him to 35 years in prison. However, he will serve 34 years, owing to the 1 year he has already spent on remand.
The International Crimes Division of High Court has convicted Daniel Chiseka Chiwanuka to 35 years in prison for the 2015 murder of former Assistant DPP Joan Kagezi Namazi. The matter is a major milestone in the murder case that started when Kagezi was shot dead on the 30th of March in 2015.
Is that the convict readily pleaded guilty to the indictment without wasting court's time, and as borne out by the facts which are already on record, it has been the case right from the time he was arrested.
This follows a plea bargain deal that Chiseka struck with the office of the DPP to accept murder charges in exchange to a lenient punishment. While the four justices, led by Michael Elubu, indicated that they were not bound by the plea deal agreement between Chiseka and the prosecution, they agreed to convict.
My Lord, as already alluded to by my colleague, my land colleague, Mr. Jatiko, 35 years it was. And bearing in mind the period spent on remand, I think it will reduce it to 33.
The plea came about as a result of Chiseka Daniel reaching out to the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, expressing his interest in a plea bargain arrangement. And so when he reached out to us, we got involved in negotiations, and the outcome was the decision of 35 years.
The court further heard that in preparation for the said murder, Chiseka cleaned, oiled and provided the killer gun to John Chibuka, who shot Kagezi around the neck. The court also heard that the 4 suspects rode on 2 boda-bodas and chased Kagezi's car from Chebando up to Chiwatule, where Chibuka fired at her as she stopped with her children to buy fruits from a roadside vendor.
At the time of his desertion, he stole 2 AK-47 rifles with 5 loaded magazines, ammunition, which were the property of UPDF.
The prosecution holds that Chiseka was arrested and charged before the General Court Martial after a failed robbery in 2008. However, he escaped from detention at the military barracks in Machindi and transferred to Kayunga, where he started a charcoal burning business.
My lord, it would read that the accused person pleaded not guilty to the charges and was remanded and escaped from Makindye military barracks.
Until her murder on 30th March 2015, Joan Kagezi was the lead prosecutor in the 2010 Kampala twin bomb suspects case, where most of the suspects were Muslims.
It's on the background of that story that we ask that you comment on the High Court decision in which a former UPDF deserter, Daniel Chiseka Chiwanuka, was convicted for the 2015 murder of Assistant DPP Joan Kagezi following his confession today. We do ask again on our NTV opinion poll question tonight that you comment on the High Court decision in which a former UPDF deserter, Daniel Chiseka Chiwanuka, was convicted for the 2015 murder of Assistant DPP Joan Kagezi following his confession today. Share your views with us on X and Facebook, that is at NTV Uganda, and we'll be getting into your feedback later on in the broadcast. Now, the police has declared that it has no information on the whereabouts of one of its officers, Charles Twini, and National Unity Platform party lawyer Abed Nasa Mudiobore, who have been missing since Wednesday. Instead, the police are now calling on the public to file formal complaints as they set up investigations into the whereabouts of the 2 officials. The call comes as reports of missing people are increasing both on social media and now mainstream media platforms, with alleged kidnap in some instances. We have more details in this report.
Thank you very much.
Last week reports that the spokesperson of the Parliament Police Criminal Investigations Directorate, CID, Charles Twini, had gone missing, started making rounds. Twini had been planning to head to Mbara with legislators for a meeting there when he was summoned to police headquarters in Naguru, following which he went missing. Media reports have quoted members who are concerned that his car could still be parked at the police headquarters. Later, reports emerged that the National Unity Platform no party lawyer Abed Nasa Mudiobole had also gone missing after being summoned to a venue in Namugongo over a land wrangle the same day. Mudiobole, who was aspiring to be a member of parliament representing Uganda municipality, was allegedly abducted by security operatives on Friday. However, police spokesperson Kituma Rusoke declared today that he has no information about the whereabouts of the 2.
When I get information about Twini, I will come here and share it. Now that I don't have it, allow me not to make any comment. NASA, I do not have any information.
However, the police had news about political aspirant for Mitiana woman MP seat, Prosi Mokisa, commonly known as Nabosa. The force admits that she was arrested and will soon be presented before court for trial.
I was briefed that she was arrested and very particular charges were preferred against her. Now, what I can only do, let me get a comprehensive report about her arrest, but I'm aware that she was arrested.
Meanwhile, Kituma says they are waiting for a formal report into a military raid on Lower Police Station early this month.
I'm waiting for a feedback from the outcomes of this investigation. When it comes, we shall be here and sharing.
As tensions mount ahead of the 2026 general polls, police is advising the public to file formal complaints and avoid speculation if they are to find redress. Juliet Naloga, NTV.
Many thanks for that report, Juliet Naroga. Now, Government Chief Whip Hamson Obua says the National Resistance Movement party leadership has been meeting in Entebbe to, among other issues, discuss matters of national importance. He insisted that the issues around the UPDF Amendment Bill 2025 were concluded much earlier and the MPs are waiting for their turn on the floor of the House. He insists that the amendment is in fulfillment of requirements of the January 2025 Supreme Court ruling. Now, the NRM members of Parliament were today summoned by the party chairperson, who also doubles as the president, to discuss this matter in Entebbe. Here are the details.
NRM Parliamentary Caucus meeting held at State House Entebbe. The NRM Parliamentary Caucus passed 2 resolutions. Resolution number 1, the caucus resolved to support the UPDF Amendment Bill as presented in Parliament by the Minister of Defense and Veterans Affairs in fulfillment of the Supreme Court ruling on the same and following our earlier resolution on the same. 2, the caucus also resolved to support the private members' bill aimed at amending the Political Parties and Organizations Act to set a condition precedent for all political parties to be members of IPOD as a condition precedent for accessing funding from government.
And now, opposition members of Parliament have unanimously agreed to participate in tomorrow's parliamentary session to oppose the UPDF Amendment Bill, which they say is aimed at bringing civilians back to military courts, which they oppose. They plan to base the arguments on law and brain power rather than being confrontational, to try and convince their NRM counterparts the dangers of having civilians tried in the military courts. Now, the opposition in Parliament today spoke to the media, led by the leader of opposition in Parliament, Joel Senyonyi.
Tomorrow, Parliament is set to receive the UPDF Amendment Bill 2025 for the second reading and probably pass it. This has caused mixed reactions among Ugandans who follow trends. The amendments include provisions for the establishment of a military court, the appointment and qualifications of the chairpersons of the military court, and offences that may lead to the prosecution of civilians in the court-martial. Opposition MPs say they agreed to sit in Parliament tomorrow to debate the UPDF bill. They say that although people have been advising them to boycott the session, but MPs argue that this would be counterproductive.
That we get to have our say on record, so that tomorrow we even have a basis for challenging whatever we would like to challenge. If we choose to go to court, for example, assuming we choose to go to court, because there's several grounds anyway that we can rely on, we shall need a basis, having been present, having had our say on record, and then you use that to challenge, whether it be in court or whatever else.
But the legislators said they will not use force to reject the bill, but brains coupled with a deep reliance on the law.
Our people know that we have fewer numbers, but they want to hear those few voices speak out loudly, and that's what we are going to do. So we are not going to move out. If they want, they can move us out. They have done that before. You can deploy the SFC and so on, and then they move us out by force. That's really within their hands. But on our end, we are going to use the law, the rules, and we are going to use our space and our platform to speak out. So
they are also encouraging everyone opposed to the trial of civilians being taken back to the court-martial to use every platform in their means to speak up against it.
This might not be captured on the Hansard. But when you talk about these issues on Twitter, on Facebook, whether it be through a text, whether it be through a video or an audio and so on, it adds value. So let's not stop. Let's all use those platforms. And for members of Parliament, you have beyond just your social media platform.
When you look at people like Kalanzi, what are you thinking? When you look at someone like a youthful person like Machete, I mean, don't you have any sort of consideration in your heart, any sort of kindness, any sort of humanness? Because what is wrong with the civilian courts? I think the regime has really tried Ugandans.
They are planning to do all this, aware that their numbers in parliament are lower than those of the NRM, who are expected to put up a spirited fight to pass the bill into law. Juma Kiria, NTV.
Juma Kiria reporting. Now lawyers say the UPDF Amendment Bill 2025 could be contested in courts if passed by Parliament. The bill seeks to try civilians in court-martial, among other issues, and this comes as Parliament prepares to receive the bill for the third reading tomorrow in a bid to have it passed. Raymond Tamale has been looking at the matter and has details in this report.
State of the Vatican.
Tomorrow, Parliament is set to receive the UPDF Amendment Bill of 2025 for the third reading in a bid to pass it into law. This comes on the back of meetings in which the Legal Committee has been scrutinizing the bill since last week. Among those presenting their views on the matter were the officials from the Defense Ministry, Attorney General, Director of Public Prosecutions, and some lawyers. Despite this, some, like the Uganda Law Society, political parties did not show up due to the short notice given to them to turn up and present on the 76-clause bill.
The law.
Yesterday, the Leader of Opposition in Parliament, Joel Sanyonyi, questioned the fast pace in which the bill was being handled by Parliament.
But the letter is reaching their office at 8 a.m. and you want them within 1 hour to show up for this committee meeting to give their views on a 150-page bill. That's ultra-vires.
You have expressed that people did not turn up, but at least they were granted an opportunity to appear before the committee. If they did not appear, that one you cannot blame it on the committee or Parliament. What you can blame on Parliament is that if Parliament had not granted the opportunity for stakeholders to appear as guided under the rules of procedure, you would fault.
According to Parliament's procedure, a bill takes a minimum of 45 days to be passed after going through the required consultation. Some lawyers have added their voice to the speed being used by government to pass the bill.
First, we believe the intention is really to pass the agenda of NRM, and they believe because they have the numbers, so they can do everything that they want to be in that Parliament. But we all know the reason for the 45 days was not that they need so much time, but was to ensure that they can do enough consultations. Our MPs are voted in to represent the interests of the electorates, and they can only represent them if they do consult.
The Supreme Court annulled certain provisions of the UPDF Act. It meant that it created a gap. For instance, we have the National Army, the UPDF. UPDF itself is governed by the UPDF Act. Now, if the Supreme Court has come to annul certain provisions, for example, the General Court Martial, then how is the discipline of the National Army going to be governed without the law itself?
Questions have also been raised on why government has failed to explain some of the sections of the bill, like the section of 117A, which speaks of trying civilians in court-martial on exceptional offences.
Yeah, the common man has an issue with the law itself and with the operation of the UPDF Act, in particular the General Court Martial, in that you will find most of the military men being tried in civilian courts, and you find the opposition activists or ordinary civilians are tried in the General Court Martial. So it does the reverse.
Where they will be tried, we've had that challenge for the last so many years, where we have people who have committed murder or suspected to commit murder using a gun, and they are tried in the normal courts. And then we have those who have been accused of committing murder using a gun, and they're tried in the military court-martial. So it's a discretion of the executive to determine who goes where.
To them, once the bill is passed in this state, it stands to be contested in courts of law.
And then there is also a challenge because we believe Parliament is trying to legislate to defeat a judgment of court, and that Article 92 of the Constitution is very clear. Parliament shall not legislate to defeat judgment of court.
Some wonder looks at the bill as a weapon to be used against opposition members ahead of the 2026 general elections.
And therefore, Museveni does not think he can go into an election when he doesn't have his tool. And his tool is very simple. You'll be arrested, you'll be arraigned in that court, and you may never participate even in the general elections.
Members of Parliament have also shown their discontent about the UPDF Amendment Bill 2025.
I said, don't worry, we are going to avail more time. But she was telling a lie. Because over the weekend, the committee has been meeting to write a report. That means consultations from different stakeholders ended. This is unacceptable.
Raymond Tamale, NTV.
For his selfless and dedicated service.
Thank you, Raymond Tamale, for that report. Now, NTV Tonight takes a very short break, but here is still to come. Still to come. We meet Albert Ira, who is one of a growing number of people suffering from a mental health crisis fueled by excessive alcohol intake, and how it has taken him 13 years to fight the vice. And it is noted that loans can be a powerful financial tool when used wisely, yet for many, they still carry a stigma when misused due to a lack of guidance.
That's me having the worst day ever. But then I saw them and I knew my besties were both going through it. And that's when I had an idea. That's OT. The socials are having him right now, but not for long. And that's Chico, certified stress girly and goated producer. So we get to the spot, and what do these guys do? And just like that, I was having the best day ever. Sharing a Coke with my faves. Who will you share a Coke with?
Elevate your experience at Protea Hotel by Marriott Kampala Skies. Wake up to breathtaking city views from our luxurious suites. Indulge in sumptuous buffets and world-class cuisine. Host seamless events in our spacious conference facilities. And toast to the skyline with signature cocktails. For unforgettable stay, visit Protea Hotel by Marriott Kampala Skies.
To handle mishaps like a boss. So even when things get out of control, I'm always in the driver's seat.
ICEA Lion has a plan for everyone. ICEA Lion, what's your plan?
Every child deserves a chance at life. But malaria still claims the lives of many children every day. This doesn't have to be the case. The good news is, starting this April, you can protect your child with the new malaria vaccine to reduce the risks of severe malaria and possible death. And when combined with a mosquito-treated net and other malaria preventive measures, it offers even stronger protection. Make sure your child gets their first malaria vaccine dose at 6 months and completes the remaining doses by their second-year birthday. This vaccine is now part of your child's routine immunization schedule and is as essential as completing all other childhood vaccines, such as those for measles, polio, and yellow fever within the first 2 years. Give your child a chance at life by visiting your nearest health facility, offering vaccination and immunization services to protect your child against all immunizable diseases.
Ever caught yourself staring at your dream car thinking, one day, but why wait? With NCBA Asset Finance, that one day is today. It's right now.
Get up to 100% financing for a brand new car from Motorcare at reduced prices, with low interest rates, a 2-month repayment holiday, discounted comprehensive insurance, and up to 72 months to repay. It's time to get the car that suits your lifestyle. Visit a Motorcare showroom or NCBA branch near you. Call 0800 222 123 or email contact ug@ncbagroup.com to apply today.
Moisture in your skin helps it repair itself constantly. Without the right balance of moisture, chances of skin problems can occur. Vaseline locks in moisture to give your skin a natural glow and protection. Use Vaseline because it is the first step to maintaining natural, healthy-looking skin.
This is NTV Tonight.
Opinion Poll is brought to you by
ICEA Lion. What's your plan?
Welcome back. Glad you're still watching NTV Tonight. Now, earlier on our opinion poll, we asked that you comment on the High Court decision in which a former UPDF deserter, Daniel Chiseka Chiwanuka, was convicted for the 2015 murder of Assistant DPP Joan Kagezi following his confession today. And now quickly looking at your responses, Kule Robinson says, the same shall be used unto them, just it is a matter. No one was born a soldier. And now Kalinachi Arthur says the court's conviction of Chiwanuka for Kagezi's murder restores hope in justice, emphasizing truth, accountability, and deterrence. And Abiku Ivan Kun says the motive behind the murder was allegedly financial, with Chiseka and his co-accused promised $200,000 for killing John. Chiseka's conviction also highlights the merit of perseverance in the pursuit of justice, as it took longer to bring the accused to justice. And now lastly, the great Chitara says the court should expose that high-profile person and bring him to account for staging an assassination of DPP Kagezi. The convicted man mentioned that person. Why not arrest that high-profile person? And we all know who they are the mafias. Well, thank you so much for your feedback. The conversation continues on our social media platforms. That is at NTV Uganda across X and Facebook. NTV Tonight returns shortly. Stay with us.
So you can become a future CEO.
Hey, Dad.
And pay for my retirement.
ICEA Lion has a plan for everyone. ICEA Lion. What's your plan?
And now moving on with NTV Tonight, NRM's Farida Nambi Chigongo has today made her final submission in the electoral petition in the High Court Civil Division, challenging NUP's Erias Luyimbazi Nalukola's victory as the duly elected Member of Parliament for Kawempe North constituency. Nambi insisted that the Electoral Commission should have held fresh polls for the contested 14 polling stations the following day, instead of declaring Nalukola's victory in line with the Electoral Commission Act. In conclusion, Nambi asked court to nullify Kawempe North by-election's outcome and order a refresh by-election. Jerome Paul Sonko has more.
A week after the High Court started hearing testimony in the petition by NRM's Farida Nambi Chigongo, the prosecution started making final submissions. In her final submissions, Nambi asked the court to strike out all 5 affidavits sworn by Nalukola on the grounds that they were sworn without following the laws governing affidavits.
My lord, during cross-examination, the witnesses were pressed to actually say that whether those were election officials who were rotating around those polling stations. Of course, they are not. But it is an evidence of Ewan Lewis Rubongoya that actually he was rotating around those polling stations. Therefore, he never denied that.
Among the affidavits the prosecution once struck down are those by NUP Secretary General David Lewis Rubongoya, Fred Ntale Mukasa, Sylvia Nachobe, Kezeki Adamba, and Ewan Musa. On the merits of the petition, they highlighted the non-compliance of the elections with the electoral laws, making the whole process illegal, and that this substantially affected the outcome of the elections.
We told the judge that from the 14 polling stations, the Electoral Commission had the right, they had the freedom, they had the power to extend voting to the next day. The declaration of a final winner in parliamentary elections happens 48 hours after the voting has commenced. Nalukola was announced winner on the day of the election in the deep dead of the night.
Based on the laws governing Electoral Commission, Section 12.1, 64.1 and 76, which touches on nullifying the elections and postponing any polls in case of any violence and riot during the elections, Nambi told court that the Commission would have exercised its discretion to nullify the elections and carry out a fresh one.
It is only one conclusion that can be reached in this matter: the annulment of the election of Nalukola as a Member of Parliament for Kawempe Division North constituency.
Regarding the 16,640 votes from the 14 polling stations which were not tallied, Nambi asked court to consider the margin of over 8,000 votes between her and the winner Nalukola and find that the untallied votes were vital to the outcome of the elections.
We have told the judge that that number is greater than the margin between Nalukola and Farida as to put the result of the election in Kawempe North in doubt.
Nambi's legal team also highlighted reports of bribery and disruption of elections officers on the voting debt, which actions were blamed on Nalukola's polling agents and some NUP officials, including David Lewis Rubongoya, Mathias Walukaga, Hilary Chiaga, among others.
If Nalukola was sponsored by the NUP, then having accepted the officials and leaders of the NUP to participate in his campaign and election, he cannot run away from the illegal practices that they committed on his behalf.
Judge Bernard Namanya adjourned the case to tomorrow, 20th May 2025, when the defense legal teams will make their final submissions in this petition. Joram Paul Sonko for NTV News.
Thank you, Jerome Paul Sonko, for that report. Now, Albert Era is one of the thousands of people who have been suffering from drug and alcohol addiction. Despite the emergence of numerous rehabilitation centers, several individuals struggle with addiction, often failing to acknowledge the extent of their condition. Now, in this interview, Era tells us that he started using drugs when he was 15 years old, and it took him 13 years to quit. However, he recovered and found a woman who used them but tried his best to get rid of them, and it was impossible. They later on divorced. Here are the details.
Albert Eloi discovered alcohol at 15 while in Senior 2 at St. Mary's College, Kisubi. He says his father's brutality was a major push factor. To cope, he began drinking. One of the consequences of the Lord's Resistance Army LRA war was that Eloi's home was filled with relatives fleeing the carnage. Tensions were high between his mother and the relatives. This led misunderstandings that resulted in Eloi frequently being punished by his father.
So it was a very toxic environment. My dad didn't know what to believe. His wife, his relatives. But ultimately, it's the kids that suffered.
Already depressed, the teenager was soon lured into using drugs like tobacco.
So I started now using in the neighborhood. And then also when I went back to school, somehow you learn how to identify the people that use. So the older boys in Senior 4, I still remember them, who I got close to and showed me how to sneak around.
By Senior 3, Eloi had been expelled from SMAC. He sat his O-level examinations at Aga Khan High School.
And I think the shame, disappointment, and what, he detached. He started focusing on other kids, So I went to St. Lawrence. I was expelled after a month. Then it's like, I'm done. Because my mom struggled, got me another school. I went to some school in Seta. Very useless school. School was so useless that you were allowed to drink and smoke as long as you're not caught. During exams, I would leave the nightclub. Those days was Club Silk. I leave Club Silk at 4. At 8, I'm at school for a paper. Still high.
After he was expelled from A-level on his first day, Elwa joined a gang in Kamocha and lived in the streets for 3 years.
I got into so many situations. I had my best friend die at 20, and another very close friend shortly after that. All alcohol related. One was murdered, another one alcohol poisoning.
During this time, Elwa met a girl who was studying at Makerere University. She encouraged him to apologize to his parents and return to school. He pursued a diploma course. In 2006, when he was 24, Elwa secured a job and got engaged to his girlfriend. However, his salary for the first 3 months was spent on drugs and alcohol.
I remember that I had to go back to work after a month. And when I called office, they told me you have no job here anymore. Sometimes I would sleep on bar benches, sometimes from people's, I hope from people's, from home to home. I was basically destitute. Until I landed on somebody who told me about rehabilitation. Talked to my parents, apologized again. They let me in. That was a Saturday. Sunday afternoon, I was in rehab.
In 2008, after completing rehab, Elwa met a fellow addict, Pamela Patience Kagwanje, who he had long admired. However, he had been diagnosed with cancer and had to undergo surgery in India to remove his esophagus.
I saw her yesterday.
Before he left for India, he discovered his girlfriend was pregnant. She gave birth to a baby boy but continued drinking heavily, which led to their separation. It's now 17 years since Elwa overcame drug abuse. He obtained a bachelor's degree in psychology and later a master's degree. 9 years ago, he founded Focus on Recovery Uganda, a mental health organization with an emphasis on treating addiction. He advocates for early intervention and involuntary treatment for severe cases.
Depends on the interview.
Dr. Emmanuel Mpamizo, a psychiatrist at Safe Places Uganda, says there are clear signs that indicate addiction. He advises young people to avoid associating with peers who use drugs, as social influence plays a major role in initiating substance use.
It is effective, and then the other thing is that it is acceptable in some situations. Alcohol, I think, is one of the most commonly accepted substances. You find that even in some settings, the occasion is not complete until alcohol or other substances are served.
As Uganda battles rising mental health challenges, Elwa's journey from addiction to advocacy highlights the urgent need for awareness and early intervention. Tomorrow, we bring you Pamela Kagwanje's story.
And now moving on, women and girls are bearing the heaviest burden of the climate crisis, one that is deepening existing inequalities and pushing millions further into poverty. Now, a 2024 United Nations report warns that climate change could drive up to 158 million more women and girls into poverty over the next 25 years. Now, as the world grapples with rising temperatures and extreme weather, it is becoming clear the impacts are not gender neutral. From the disrupted livelihoods to increased health and safety risks, climate change is threatening hard-won gains in human rights and sustainable development. Now, in this special report, Walter Mwesije explores how the very forces fueling the climate emergency are also reinforcing the structural inequalities faced by women and girls.
Climate change has thrown Uganda's environmental stability into disarray. But beyond the ecological devastation, climate change is exposing deeper societal inequalities. Women and girls, especially in rural Uganda, are paying the highest price. In Kasese district, the effects of climate change are not just data points, they are daily disasters. In April, River Mubuku burst its banks. Homes were submerged, dozens were displaced. Among them, expectant mothers, young girls, entire families torn apart from stability. At an internally displaced camp in Nyambuko Upper Cell, 2 women gave birth under these dire conditions. just days after fleeing the floods.
The rain started at 11 p.m. and stopped at 5 a.m. We woke up and found our houses flooded. We had to flee to this camp.
A traditional birth attendant helped me to deliver. I didn't have money to even buy gloves.
Both women lost everything in the floods. Without proper food, shelter, or medical care, even breastfeeding has become a challenge.
In this condition, I don't have enough breast milk because of the shock of losing my house and property. Here at the camp, we don't have enough food. There are mosquitoes and my baby is always crying.
The nearest government health facility, Rukochi Hospital, is over 30 kilometers away. Neither mother received immunization for their newborns.
We found a number of pregnant mothers who are also in this setting. And you can imagine if they wanted to access antenatal services, if they wanted to deliver, and you can imagine if it is like a cesarean birth, at the risk that the mother bears. Across Uganda's rural communities, women bear the brunt of climate-related disruptions, responsible for collecting water, cooking, and farming. Their daily burdens grow heavier as climate shocks hit harder. But climate change isn't just about storms and floods. It's about stress, poverty, and sometimes violence. Esther, a small-scale trader in Kasese, is now disabled. Her husband, who was arrested, couldn't accept her independence, driven by economic desperation in a changing climate.
When I bought the plot of land and told my husband that I'm going to start construction work on it, that was the start of all problems. He should have at least told me that he doesn't want what I was going to do, instead of cutting off my hands.
According to the UN Gender Snapshot Report of 2024, climate change doesn't directly cause gender-based violence, but it does worsen the conditions that lead to it: poverty, displacement, inequality.
Women are contributing very greatly to the agriculture sector. The agriculture sector contributes 24% of our economy. So if we have floods disrupting agriculture, if we have extreme weather conditions, affecting the production of crops and growing and the labor force in that sector, women are affected more, and they are losing livelihoods, they are losing sources of income, they are losing the money that feeds their homes.
The government says it has provided women-focused financial support through initiatives like the Parish Development Model and Emyoga.
For example, PDM, they have 30%. Emyoga, they have their percentage as women. But sometimes women don't want to stay at home.
But 92% of Uganda's labor force is in informal employment. For women, it is even higher, 94%, according to the 2021 National Labor Force Survey.
2021 law on climate change actually specifically provides for the High Court to have jurisdiction over all climate-related grievances.
To respond, Uganda has launched the Climate Change Health National Adaptation Plan 2025-2030, aimed at building resilience in the health sector.
There is no clear financing mechanism for this adaptation plan, apart from maybe if the Ministry of Health tries to, fundraise from well-wishers.
As climate change extremes continue to hit, Uganda must act faster to protect its most vulnerable, starting with the women who carry not just children, but the burdens of a broken system. Walter Mwesije, NTV.
Thank you, Walter Mwesije, for that report. Now, NTV Tonight takes a very short break. When we return, Malcolm Musime is on standby to bring you the latest happening in the world of business.
In Mirembe Villas Chigo, you can book a modern and well-facilitated apartment with 37 million Ugandan shillings today. Apartments feature sleek and modern designs with ample parking and quality construction. Modern apartments offer spacious living rooms, cozy bedrooms, and kitchen with ample storage space. Enjoy access to top-notch amenities with kids' play area, basketball court, and outdoor gazebo areas. Mirembe Villas Chigo, your future home awaits you.
Good morning, beautiful. It's time to wake up. How was your night? Beautiful. Rest from gives a very good morning. And dreams. Rest from and rest spring mattresses. The big deal. No morning body pain. Massages you through.
You can only sleep like a baby on the highest quality and durable mattress for backaches, overall body pains, resting at its best. You name it, Rose Farm has it all.
Rose Farm, a world of beautiful dreams.
Here's your chance to win school fees for your child for a whole year. Just pay school fees using Momo.
Today we are at Lukman Primary School that's located in Kauku, Bwerenga, right by the lakeside. We have a happy customer who paid for her daughter's school fees. Nuru wano muwanguzi era agenda kusoma guno mwaka gwonna. MTN Momo esasudde yo akolegwa akusoma.
Nga nsasula bitundu nendeeta nensasulako nasigala nga babanja natuka okuwumula nga tannamalayo era nkita bibadde byangu naye mwebale nnyo mwebalira mpulira ng'essanyu limpitidde naye mpulira ate kati nga kaba bukaabi mu mutima mwebale nnyo mwebalidda kula nga nze muwanguzi nakkonde nnooku.
Dial *165 *80 hash. Select option 2 for school pay. Select option 1 to pay school fees. Enter the student number and amount and approve the transaction. You will now enter the draw to win school fees for your child for a whole year.
Hey!
Yes!
Everyone has a dream of owning a house this year. It's your turn to Joga 2025 with ABSA. Switch to ABSA and make your dream a reality by applying for the ABSA Home Loan. Call 0800 222 333 and let's get started. ABSA, your story matters.
Mala ngenze mbonipa Sam anazanya luto ganyiga star 278 then hash ujja kubanga oyingire mu kazannyo nga sente zino zimula wano zina wangula zino wano milioni 10.6 ebintu wanasooka biraba ku TV nange saasoka kikiriza ninga mulaye kino kinzo kubanga kituufu oba yaddala tibya bufere sente zino nazifunye zino nazikoze ki naziwangudde amasanyu nina mangi ebyoto byange byembadde njagala genda bituukiriza.
Uganda National Lottery. Dream, play, win.
Participants must be 18 years or older. Play responsibly. The Uganda National Lottery is operated by Tuba Uganda and regulated by the National Lotteries and Gaming Regulatory.
Yeah, possible.
Looks like whoever drops the ball buys a Pepsi. Go on, Jack. Sonny! Saved by Leah Williamson. Wow, Vinny Jr. Game over.
Wait, there's only one Vinny J.
Pepsi, thirsty for more.
This is NTV Tonight. Is brought to you by...
Contact UG at ncbagroup.com to apply today.
Good evening, you're welcome. This is Business. My name is Malcolm Sime, and let's now start off with matters borrowing, because we turn focus to the topic that affects individuals and entrepreneurs alike: responsible borrowing. Loans can be a powerful financial tool, which, when used wisely, yet for many, they still carry a stigma or are misused due to a lack of guidance. Earlier, we hosted the chairman of the Moneylenders Association, and he pointed out that some people resort to borrowing even in moments of desperation, such as paying medical bills for patients in the ICU. It's a stark reminder that borrowing isn't always for business ventures or investments. Sometimes it's about survival. So what is being done to make sure that those that are unbankable are reached and, given the, basic level of financial literacy, to make sure that when they borrow this money, they can actually use it properly?
As an association, we've endeavored to teach. I personally talk a lot, teach a lot on different platforms, including radios, including TV, but also we do individual talks. I have a YouTube channel where I actually communicate and explain to the public concerning loans, credits, and all that. Because truth is, the public is not aware. That's why even someone can afford to go for a loan that is as expensive as 30% per month, yet there are some companies that lend for as low as 3%, 2.8%, 4%. And just because someone has no information that, there is this other lender who can give me cheap money. So there is a huge bracket of Ugandans that actually need to be educated. And as the president of the Moneylenders Association of Uganda, it's what we are embarking on. Because we have regional representatives that are going to be participating in radio talk shows, educating the public, telling them the pros and cons of borrowing, for what reasons should they borrow, for what reasons should they not borrow. Because, Malcolm, there are some areas where you even advise a client, yes, I want to dish out money, to give out money in form of a loan. But you look at someone is borrowing probably for a patient in ICU. And you look at someone's cash flows and even the collaterals they do not have. Now, for such a thing, if it's a consumptive expenditure, we should advise that, look, even when you have a collateral, it is not advisable. Because in the event that you run out of this money that I've given you, paying back will be hard.
As we leave, what do you see on online, formal online financial activity? What is happening there? There are people who are being targeted online with, and these days you see it on YouTube and all that. Cheap loans. Every time you open a video, cheap loans. And of course, we are not short of stories now of people who are being ripped off. Do we still see such vices online?
They are still there. Unfortunately, they are still there. Online is interesting, and they're still existing. As far as the public is not educated, they are not aware. They'll still access those loans. I'll give you an example. Someone calls you and they found that you have to pay their salaries. You pay them, but just because they have a loan on their mobile phone, the money goes. Now, instead of the money they would have used to pay school fees for their children, it has gone to pay the loan. Which loan, because they could access it easily, they used it for something different, which did not even benefit them. They probably contributed to a wedding meeting, or probably they went drinking with their friends, and now time has come, they have to take children to school, but because they paid them salaries, because they have a loan, their money goes vanishing.
Is the rate of default going up or going down?
It's going high. Why? Because there are lots of options for loans. Someone gets money from Janaki, gets a real loan, then gets a loan from the phone.
That goes online.
Then goes to a friend. So you find that someone has like 5 loans running at one go. Why? Because they can easily access the loans. So in easing accessibility of the loans, it has actually created a huge problem to the public.
Thank you very much, Janaki. Lessons about money never end.
Thank you.
We have to keep doing this time and again. Ugandans borrowing for survival. Yeah, that conversation will return or continue on NTV Business Now next week on Monday. That was just part of it. A new study conducted by the government of Uganda, of Ireland, I beg your pardon, in partnership with tax advocates in this country, reveals that taxpayers are increasingly reluctant to pay local taxes, largely due to perceived lack of improvement in public services. The research, which examined 10 local governments, municipalities and town councils, found that the absence of proper roads, functional markets and other basic infrastructure is significantly discouraging tax compliance. NTV's Rona Nahabwe filed this report.
Despite Uganda's rising public debt, the country still struggles to collect enough tax revenue. In the 2023-2024 financial year, the government collected 27.7 trillion shillings, below the target of 29.6 trillion shillings. Local governments should be playing a critical role in collecting both tax and non-tax revenue, but many face challenges with low taxpayer compliance being the biggest problem.
One case, I think, was in Kotido municipality in the market, where women told us that they are so much discouraged when they see the municipal council authorities collecting taxes. They feel so bad because where they are operating from is not clean enough. It's a market, it's dirty, the garbage collection is not, garbage is not collected in time, the market is not lit. So as soon as evening falls, then they are always rushing to close.
The complicated tax system is also making more people unwilling to pay. Taxes like property and rental income tax confuse many as people feel like they're being taxed twice.
There is need for URA and municipal authorities and town council authorities to work together to give clear explanations to the taxpayers. If these two taxes, for example, are different, let the taxpayers know.
Due to limited capacity in revenue administration, many local governments remain heavily dependent on the central government for funding, which puts pressure on the national budget.
They are dependent on the central government because they are receiving almost 95 to 97% from the central government. That makes it difficult for them to provide the services needed by the community.
Even as the taxman rolls out interventions aimed at boosting revenue mobilization, officials admit that corruption has undermined some of these efforts.
URA also operates in an ecosystem where corruption thrives. We may not have a lot to do when it comes to the environment that you are working in.
Uganda's revenue to GDP ratio stands at an estimated 13.6%, still below the sub-Saharan Africa average of 16%. Experts warn that unless reforms are implemented to streamline taxation and improve compliance, Uganda may continue to struggle with inadequate revenue, hampering development efforts. Roana Habwe, NTV Business.
Thank you, Ronald. From tax matters now to currency markets and equities, because this is how the closing was. The Uganda shilling closed today's forex trading session on a stable note, exchanging 3645 and 3675 against the US dollar. Market analysts attribute that stability to balanced demand and supply, with no major pressure from either importers or exporters. And from the stock market, the Uganda Securities Exchange saw modest gains today, with the all-share index rising to 1,306 and 1,295 points, reflecting investor confidence in select counters. Activity was led by MTN Uganda and Airtel, which recorded the highest turnover, boosted by over 7.6 million in combined trades. Meanwhile, key stocks like Stanbic Bank and Uganda Clays also registered movement, contributing to a total market turnover of 7.88 million across 15 deals. Thank you. That's all we had time for you on NTV Business. And in case you missed anything, subscribe to our YouTube channel and review those stories. And next up, Sport Nights coming up with all the global sporting news. But don't forget to follow conversations on our social media platforms, and ntv.co.ug is our website.
With NCBA Asset Finance, that one day is today. It's right now. Get up to 100% financing for a brand new car from Motorcare at reduced prices, with low interest rates, a 2-month repayment holiday, discounted comprehensive insurance, and up to 72 months to repay. It's time to get the car that suits your lifestyle. Contact UG at ncbagroup.com to apply today.